Welcome to ET Studios GCC Giants, coming to you from ET GCC Annual Conclave 2024. It's my pleasure to introduce our panelists, Raja Jamalamadaka, who's the Managing Director, Roche Information Solutions India Private Limited, and Pankaj Vyas, who's the CEO and Managing Director of Siemens Technology and Services. Together, they will be shedding light on driving innovation and digital transformation at GCCs. Now, we all know GCCs are shaping the future of business. Enterprises are increasingly viewing GCCs as vital innovation hubs to maintain a competitive edge. But the challenge here lies in aligning their strategic priorities with the capabilities of GCCs to fully leverage their potential. 74% of the participants in the EY GCC Pulse 2021 survey believe that GCCs are acting as the global hub for digital skills and innovation. From just 500 GCCs a decade ago, there are over 1,700 GCCs in India today, employing more than 1.9 million people. The GCC industry in India is expected to double in terms of size over the next 3 years, fueled by digital transformation, expansion of existing centers, and addition of new centers. Now, my first question to the two of you is, how are GCCs driving a future-fit agenda for their parent organization, be it through increased adoption of technology or by implementation of AI in various functions? In what areas and new areas do you think GCCs can expand to, and what overall impact do you expect this to have? Pankaj, would you like to take this first?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. So the way we look at it, right? I mean, for all the GCCs, the ones who have been around for a long time, there's a lot of investment that's gone in building a pretty strong tech know-how, domain know-how, and then also there's a lot of market know-how that's building up, right? And now there's an opportunity for us to put all that together and get future ready. And when we see future ready, what I have seen talking to a lot of colleagues in the industry over here is there's a lot of focus on learning, and learning for two specific objectives. One is towards how do we get more productive, right? And productivity means not just doing more with less, but also taking up bigger roles and higher roles and growing up in the value chain. That's really about the productivity. And then second element, which I'm really happy to see happening across GCCs, most of the GCCs, is focus on getting future ready. And that's where the getting ready with the skills which are required for the future work that's coming up. And interestingly, we have not seen the kind of pace that we are seeing now, right? So the technologies, be it about what you do with data, right? I mean, it's about really cloud, it's about edge compute, it's about AI, Gen AI, and you can just go on and on. But you really have to figure out where do you want to invest in, right? And based on the companies that we are in, I mean, especially if I talk from this company like Siemens, which is in hardware and software both, there's a lot of work that's going on, smartification of hardware, right? Which is like end devices are becoming smarter, putting a lot of intelligence in there. But at the same time, there's a lot of focus going on as to how do you create value from the data that comes from these devices. What do you do with that, right? So there's a very interesting broad spectrum of learning, focused learning that's going on, which is really helping us getting ready for the future. And then, of course, the whole conversation would be incomplete if I don't talk about Gen AI, what it is doing, right? And people have different views on it. But by my personal view, how overall GCCs are making use of it is, how do you make your products smarter and easier to use, and how do you get more productive? So it's really product and productivity, which is really about the Gen AI today. And I see a lot of focus today is on enablement and experimentation. And enablement means really about how do you make your people aware of what Gen AI is, how to make use of it, how do these tools work. And then experimentation is really change the mindset that you have to start using it, right? And once we are done with this enablement and the experiment phase, I think we are very close to seeing the acceleration of Gen AI adoption in product and productivity both. I mean, that's the way I see if I can call it a drone view of what's happening in GCC.
It's so interesting, right? How GCCs have now become where technology is adopted first or rolled out first, or POCs are happening first, right? Because, they're really setting the standard for the rest of the organization. And
absolutely. I mean, if you look at the report that I think EY had, if I'm not wrong, it really talked about 30 to 40% of the POCs done by GCCs in India, they are getting converted into real products and solutions. I mean, that's a huge step, right? Within such a short time, if you can really have that kind of conversion, it really tells you what can be done. And I think credit goes to the leadership in GCC and all the tech know-how and domain know-how that's developed over the time, where we're able to take front seat and be in a driving seat, and of course being with an attitude to collaborate and not just compete.
Absolutely. Let me go across to another GCC leader that we have on this panel. Raja, we were in complete agreement with whatever Pankaj was saying, right? Yeah. So I'm sure your experience also reflects the same.
Yeah, very much so. Pankaj, thank you for setting the base, and thank you for having me here. You asked about future ready, and there's no future without the past, understanding, etc. So this is the third GCC I'm heading. So let me give a little bit of past and then talk about the future. 10 to 15 years back, there was no GCC, there was no GIC, there was something called as captive. So the whole conversation at that time was about cost, and how much are you saving, and what is the India side? It's a back office, was just the term. That time I used to attend the meetings. There were never such big ones, it was in smaller hotels. Cut short to 10 years ago, the term GICs came, Global In-House Centers, not capability, etc. This time the conversation shifted, not back office or low-end, low-class scrap talent anymore. Oh, no, these are LPOs, KPOs, those kinds of things started coming. This is not just cost. These guys can deliver something. They started being called from cost centers to delivery centers. And the term global in-house centers, still you versus us, we are headquarters, you, that kind. 5 or 6 years ago, a new term came called global capability centers. This is when GCCs came, 2016-17, I started hearing that term. By this point, things were like, oh, it's not you versus us. First time I started hearing we. I saw a second change. Earlier it was all cost. Now the words value started coming. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I used to see the term called resources. 6-7 years ago, the word talent started coming. So there's a change in taxonomy, there's a change in terms, there's a change in perspective, there's a change in everything. So this is the past journey. Cut the picture today and looking at the future now, it's no more GCCs, it's not capabilities, these are value centers. I see a new term called GVCs, and every few weeks I hear a new term and all that. And now the headquarters feel you are nothing more than the headquarters except for the geography. All of a sudden you are as good as the headquarters. All of a sudden you're not doing just cost, you could be doing patents, you could be doing copyrights, you could be at the cutting edge, and there's all kinds of talk in terms of if it's something very run-of-the-mill, etc., we outsource because you're part of us, only you do something critical. And this is where the point that Pankaj mentioned so neatly, etc., fits in. So if you're as good as the headquarters, you're doing something, whatever value, etc., is being derived is what the headquarters feels, etc. You no more are looking just at the P&L report, you're looking at the balance sheet right now. Suddenly you are putting value, your patents come into the asset section of the, you are now as good as the headquarters. So looking forward, I see this journey further accelerate into you are offshoot of the headquarters, just that you're located in India. I see this getting deeper traction. I see people in the GCCs no more thinking about, we will set our own mission, our own vision. Your vision and mission is the same as the headquarters. What's the difference? You're part of them. I see talk change in the GCCs from just technology, we do some products, to we talk the language of business. Technology exists for business, not the other way around. The tail doesn't wag the dog wags the tail. The moment that happens, you're talking about business, and tech is an enabler of business. I see this talk a lot happening right now. So with future, I see value, I see talent as good as headquarters, I see a focus on business, but tech is an enabler of business. And then the Gen AI neatly that you brought up, love it or hate it, you can't ignore Gen AI. It is going to be, but Gen AI in the context of business, talk about the business value. And I see people in the GCCs or whatever term that they come up with in the future scheme of things, talking business, value, growth, balance sheet, and all those kinds of things. This evolution journey which I've seen is fantastic. 5 years from now, I look forward to a similar discussion, except the CEO could be sitting, etc., and you're with and just talking the same language, etc. And I see that absolutely happen in times.
Raja, you've been leading GCCs in their various forms, as we discussed, for several years now. And like you rightly said, it's moved from just cost arbitrage to now a value addition center. It surely wasn't an easy journey to get here, right? But you definitely had the conviction to see it through and to see the GCCs move up the value chain. What do you think India had going for it? Was it the technology being at the forefront of cutting edge technology? Is it the fact that we have a good relation with the Western nations where these companies are based? Is it the fact that we are in a suitable time zone for all this to take place? What do you think was the foremost factor? Of course, not to forget our fantastic talent as well.
Thank you. That's a great question. The first, of course, is the word that we started off with, cost. There was the benefit associated with the cost actually. Now, you have a lot of nations where cost benefit could have come from, but then the fact that there was a huge mass of English speaking people and the vast number of outsourcing nations, there are in Europe, there are in other countries, but still the majority is US and UK, both of which are English speaking. So you had a cost attractive talent that was English speaking and available in mass. If you had a very small, it would not have worked. You had exactly those 3 points. Time zone, plus minus, I won't say was exactly an advantage. You are 12.5 hours ahead of California. So there was like when we are sleeping, you are waking up, but then that got converted into a positive narrative. When you sleep, we work. So we are working 24/7. So this ability to convert this narrative is where it all started. A fifth point which I'll never ignore is the fact that the diaspora, Indian diaspora in those countries, you have so many people who are from an Indian background who knew India, who said, don't worry about it, we will bridge the cultural gap. These early adopters then took all of these favorable ingredients, created that narrative and started off the initial GCCs. Now it wasn't a smooth sail. 10 or 11 years ago, I know of 1 or 2 GCCs which really had to be sunset, for example, or reach a stage when we're not able to get the value because there was this view that the only reason we came was cost, and then the cost was increasing rapidly. Pretty soon the narrative was changed again. It's not cost alone. There's this massive pool of talent, then this thing which I mentioned, when you sleep, we work and all that. And then this critical component that it is not cost but value, and this value is a very misheard term. So this diaspora was able to convert into a story. Value is this for you. Suddenly you went to the next stage. So these 5 ingredients, I think, played a super critical role. There are 1 or 2 more which are important, which were not there earlier. 2015 onwards, the policy landscape started getting much better. Earlier, when it is just because the policy landscape matters a little bit, that mattered enormously. And the last one, which you alluded to at the beginning for the introduction, earlier you had just 100, 200 GCCs. That's not an ecosystem, it's just a start. There's a difference between 100, 200 and a tipping point when the number increases. And when you have a lot of those, there's a reverse pressure on other organizations. Everybody is going, maybe am I missing out? And then you had a rush of companies 15, 16 onwards, and then it's like a tsunami, positive one of course, and then you had increasing numbers. So it's all these enabling factors that came together. And then of course technology, like you said, India adopts technology almost at the same pace at which US does actually. So all of these things, etc. In the ecosystem, I'll quickly mention one last point. I will not forget the role of the services companies, Infosys, TCS, Wipro and all that, and then the huge success stories that they had convinced the headquarters or the parent organizations that, hey, if they can do it, tech is here to stay, etc. I think all of these played a key role in that thing going forward.
If I could just add to this, right? I mean, clearly there's a very well played out harmony between academia, there's the industry and the government, right? And I think you kind of really touched upon on all 3 of those. I don't think there's any country on a planet Earth which can say you have more than 2 million STEM graduates coming out every year. English speaking STEM graduates every year. I mean, is there a gap in being employable? Definitely yes. But I think as an industry, we have done a great job of bridging that gap. Government has stepped in last few years with interesting policies for starting a business and running a business. And then there's a very unique advantage that I think unique GCCs have started enjoying now as a tipping point because of the size. If you step back and look at what the parent companies have, they have grown over decades and they have built these silos of businesses in different locations, right? And now when they have to transform, they don't have the pathways for information to flow through the silos. They're really getting stuck with that. But it's really the place like India where you pretty much have presence of every business and you have an opportunity to break those walls, create the pathways of information and help headquarters as to how to do this transformation. And I really see that a lot of GCCs are stepping into that path also, which is not the advantage that other locations really have. So we really have a mini of HQ here. Like you said, we are exactly at the same level, but with added advantage of having more collaboration, and that again accelerates more innovation also. So I really think it's a sweet spot to be in, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's taken a few decades to be where we are.
Beautifully summed up, Raja, and that's such an interesting point about the synergy that India is poised to create and creates, right? Pankaj, at Siemens, you believe in technology with a purpose, right? Especially now when technology has been the driving force behind success. How do you think this has helped your GCC stay ahead of the curve?
Sure. I mean, if I talk about Siemens, we are largely in three businesses, right? One is the industrial, then there's infrastructure and mobility, right? And these are traditional businesses compared to a lot of new digital businesses that we talk about. And these businesses take their time to adopt technologies for the right reasons, but they have to be matured enough. These are all mission critical fields that we are talking about. And as the cloud and AI and edge compute got more matured, we are seeing that adoption happening over here. But that adoption has a big impact on purpose that these industries are supposed to serve, right? And that's where, what we guys do from GCC in India for Siemens Technology and Services is, in each of these businesses, we are looking at, hey, what do we mean by infusing new technology in these products and solutions, right? So for an example, if I'm really infusing a new technology in building products and building management systems, it's really about, how am I going to get the energy savings from this building? How do I reduce the carbon emission from this building? How do I reduce the carbon footprint from this building, right? So the solutions really geared towards that. If I look at industries, it's really about, how do I reduce the wastages in the industry, right? How do I set up an industry with a technology like digital twin, where I can really do a whole setup on a digital twin before even I lay first brick? And that really means big for overall, for the world and the green world, right? On mobility, it's really about, how do you get better utilization of the existing infrastructure, where you can carry more people safely and with more convenience. I mean, just imagine having more and more people coming towards metros and the mass transits. It just means lesser number of cars. We just talked about a beautiful traffic in the city where we are in today, right? And you know what I mean, right? So that's what we mean by technology with purpose, wherein we are saying, hey, look, it needs to improve quality of life. It needs to improve the health of the planet that we are in. And a lot of our innovations that we do from GCs in India are really geared towards the areas that I just talked about.
Now you spoke about traffic, so I want to quickly segue into sustainability, right? How are GCCs incorporating sustainable practices, and what are the predictions for future workspace trends, particularly in terms of innovative approaches and environmental considerations?
Years ago, sustainability was a buzzword. We used to say, oh, we are completely sustainable, and have someone have it in thermos or whatever be the case, and then waste paper and all of that actually. And it was just now, with the kind of focus that exists on sustainability, it has taken a life all across the board actually. Starting from the most basic point, and Pankaj covered it really well, before the first brick is there, he also said it very elegantly. You have a digital twin waiting out there, or a co-pilot and all of those kinds of things. I won't go to the tech details. You can model the whole thing. For example, if I want to go from here to the airport, I do not take the road first. I take the Google map and I see everything. It's like a digital twin. Basically, I see the entire thing and I take the most optimal one. This is one part of it. Imagine this in an entire building. You can model the whole thing, check all the possible errors, etc. And there's a potential of saving or identifying first the areas where you could have environmental degradation and all that, and design buildings in line with that.
And cross collaboration with teams.
Exactly. So starting from the facility, the most basic but a high cost one, for example, it's on the cost side, it's very, very costly. You build a certain premises which incorporates all of these, then it's a case of running it that way. Once you built it, the practices right from beginning are that, from simple things like paper usage and all of those kinds of things to more advanced ones actually. Let me go to one of the advanced ones, and it's, let's talk about what data centers. I could talk of any of those. Let's talk data center. A data center, for all practical reasons, is extremely energy intensive. There are technologies available, but at a certain price point, if used correctly, can go hand in hand with the wonderful facility that you built, and together play a key role in ensuring that carbon footprint comes down. Add all of these together and all of the factors, and you have an ingredient, or you have a ecosystem in place for a center that is built that is less energy intensive. I didn't say zero, less energy intensive, and runs the appropriate way. Now, you cannot have absolute zero, but to get to net zero, there is a path defined also. There was never a path defined earlier. 20, 35, 20, for example, in our organization, 45 is the year that's defined. We will go, and then a bunch of steps year on year. When you have these big chunks, 10 years later, we'll do nothing happens. But when you have path year on year broken down, quarter on quarter, we will do these kinds of things. Now let's figure out the initiatives. So starting from the building onwards to running the whole thing, to taking a look at the very intensive ones. I took an example of a data center. I could have taken any, on to future plans that go as micro as a month to as macro as a decade. We have all the ingredients in place to look at a sustainability from holistic perspective, and then micro. So micro to macro, macro to micro. I think these are playing a key role in sustainability.
Absolutely. If I have to add there, I mean, very well put there, right? The way we have started operating, right? It's not about profit alone. So then we said it should be about people also. Now it's about planet also. So it's about profit, people, and planet on everything that you do, right? And then if you look at it very holistically, especially now, just talk about the development perspective, right? I mean, we are talking about development unit here, adding a lot of value to the products. So it's really about product. Then there's a production of a product, and then there's a performance of a product. So it really starts with a product, because right at the design space, based on what I have read, 80% of your decisions as to how this product is going to be sustainable or not sustainable, they are really at the design stage because of the recyclability. What happens when this product comes to the end of life? Is it going to be buried in the nature earth, or would you be able to get the parts out and recycle, right? Then it comes to the production. Is your production really with the most efficient energy resources? Is it really done in the most optimal way? That adds to your sustainability and carbon footprint. And then the performance. I mean, is it really working in the way it should? Or if it's suboptimal way, then it's taking more energy than it should, right? So that's product production and performance. So this is all about, say, when GCCs are adding to the product. But then some sustainable practices also, the behavioral part. I mean, we are all like thousands of people, and how we behave to add to the sustainability, right? I mean, right from how's your commute, are you using plastic bottles at office, what's your water wastages, what's your food wastage. I mean, these are all the behavioral elements. And I think it's a cultural element that we as GCCs got to build in our teams, that they start thinking sustainability every day in everything that they do, and not just that I develop a sustainable product, but then here I am throwing plastics. Exactly. It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Not that big buzzword sustainability.
Exactly. It's integrated in your day-to-day life. We
all can do simple
exactly
things. I think that culture you said it very neatly.
Absolutely.
But it's so great to see that the values are in the right place. You know, we've talked about futuristic outlook with technology, but you have a futuristic outlook with the environment as well, which is the driving force. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great conversation, a mini masterclass from the leaders of GCCs. Thank you. And stay tuned to ET Studios GCC Giants for more such insightful conversations.